3 words. That is all it took to turn Anna Vance's life into ashes. I reject you. Standing in the middle of the crowded ballroom, pregnant with triplets she hadn't yet announced, Anna watched the love of her life choose a political alliance over her. He thought he was discarding a weak, penniless orphan. Don't reject Anna too. Hit subscribe. The water in Anna Vance's glass had gone tepid, but she couldn't stop her hand from trembling. The Ironclaw pack house was suffocating tonight. It was the Alpha's Ascension Gala, the night Silas Vane, her childhood sweetheart and fated mate, officially took the title of Alpha. Anna adjusted the hem of her simple worn dress. It was second-hand, bought from a consignment shop in the human town bordering the territory, a sharp contrast to the silk and jewels adorning the high-ranking wolves around her. She didn't care about the clothes, though. Her hand drifted subconsciously to her stomach. 3 heartbeats. The pack healer, Elder Maris, had confirmed it only 4 hours ago. Triplets, a rare miracle in the werewolf world, and a guarantee of a legendary lineage. She was carrying the future of the Ironclaw pack. She had planned to tell Silas tonight, right after the ceremony. She imagined his face, the way his storm-gray eyes would light up, the way he'd pull her close and whisper promises into her hair. Ladies and gentlemen, the announcer's voice boomed, cutting through the orchestra music. Your new Alpha, Silas Vane. The applause was deafening. Silas descended the grand staircase. He looked like a warrior king in his formal attire, broad-shouldered and commanding. But as he reached the bottom, his eyes didn't find Anna. They locked onto someone else. Standing in the front row was Lady Celine. The daughter of the neighboring Alpha, Celine was everything Anna wasn't: wealthy, politically connected, and ruthless. She wore a gown of midnight sapphire that cost more than Anna made in 5 years working at the pack clinic. Silas took the microphone. The room went silent. Thank you all, Silas said, his voice smooth, but lacking its usual warmth. Tonight is about the future of Ironclaw. To survive the territorial wars with the rogue packs and secure our borders, we need strength. We need alliances. Anna's wolf whimpered. Something is wrong. Silas turned, finally looking at Anna, but there was no love in his gaze, only a cold, calculating resolve. Anna Vance, he said. The crowd parted like water, leaving Anna exposed in the center of the ballroom. She stepped forward, a tentative smile on her lips. Silas, she whispered. You have been a loyal member of this pack, Silas continued, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling. But an Alpha needs a Luna who brings power to the table, who brings armies and gold. You bring nothing but burden. The heir left the room. Silas, please. Anna stepped closer, her hand clutching her stomach. I have news. I'm Silas Vane, Alpha of Ironclaw, he spoke over her, his voice booming with the Alpha command that forced her to her knees. Reject you, Anna Vance, as my fated mate. The pain was instant. It felt like a physical blow to the chest, a snapping of a tether that connected their souls. Anna gasped, collapsing onto the cold marble floor. The room erupted in murmurs, but all she could hear was the roaring in her ears and the 3 tiny heartbeats still fluttering inside her. Silas stepped closer, his voice dropping to a cruel whisper only she could hear. And if you're carrying anything of mine, get rid of it. I won't have half-breed bastards threatening my alliance with Celine. Anna's vision blurred with tears, but she forced herself to stand, even as her legs shook. She stumbled toward the doors, the crowd parting with looks of pity and disgust. The freezing rain hit her face as she burst outside, running into the darkness with nothing but the clothes on her back and 3 lives depending on her survival. 5 months later, Anna barely recognized herself in the cracked mirror behind the counter of the Crossroads diner. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting her gaunt face in sickly intervals of shadow and light. She looked like a ghost. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes like bruises, and her skin had taken on a grayish pallor that no amount of concealer could hide. Her uniform hung loose on her frame everywhere except her belly, which had swollen to an impossible size. The triplets were feeding on her, draining every ounce of strength she had left. Elder Maris had warned her this might happen. Alpha pups required massive amounts of energy to develop, and without a mate bond to draw from, they were consuming her life force directly. She could feel it happening, a constant pull that left her dizzy and breathless. The diner bell chimed. Anna forced herself to look up, her hand gripping the counter for support. Just another hour. She could make it another hour. "Coffee, hon," she called out, her voice hoarse. The trucker at booth 3 nodded without looking up from his phone. Anna reached for the pot, but her vision swam. The coffee sloshed over the rim, scalding her hand. She didn't even flinch. The pain was distant, muted, like everything else in her life now. She'd been running for 5 months, moving from town to town along the human-werewolf border, taking whatever work she could find. The Crossroads Diner was the end of the line, a flickering neon sign in the middle of nowhere that attracted truckers, drifters, and the occasional rogue wolf passing through. Her wolf had gone silent 3 weeks ago. Anna knew what that meant. Her body was shutting down, prioritizing the lives inside her over her own. At night, she could feel the triplets moving, their tiny fists and feet pressing against her ribs with supernatural strength. They were fighting to survive, and they were killing her in the process. "You look like death, sweetie." Marge, the owner, appeared beside her with a concerned frown. The older woman had been kind enough not to ask questions when Anna showed up desperate for work, but even Marge's patience was wearing thin. "I'm fine," Anna lied, pouring the coffee with shaking hands. "You need to see a doctor." "I can't afford," the world tilted. Anna's knees buckled, and she grabbed for the counter, but her fingers found only air. The last thing she heard before darkness claimed her was the sound of shattering ceramic and Marge screaming her name. When Anna's eyes fluttered open, she wasn't staring at the diner's stained ceiling. She was looking into eyes like molten silver, ancient and terrible and beautiful. A man knelt beside her, his hand pressed against her swollen belly, and she felt it immediately. A surge of pure alpha energy flowing into her, into the babies, like lightning through her veins. "Breathe," he commanded, his voice resonating with power that made her wolf stir for the first time in weeks. "You're not dying today. None of you are." Anna tried to pull away, but her body wouldn't obey. The energy kept flowing, warm and overwhelming, filling the hollow spaces inside her that had been empty for so long. The triplets responded instantly, their movements becoming stronger, more vibrant. She could feel them drinking in the alpha power like starving wolves. "Who?" her voice cracked. The man's face was sharp and aristocratic, framed by dark hair that fell past his shoulders. He wore all black, expensive clothes that looked out of place in the greasy diner, and there was something ancient about him, something that made every instinct scream both danger and salvation. "Kalen Drago," he said simply, as if the name should mean something. It did. Even in her half-conscious state, Anna recognized it. The Alpha King. The Void Wolf. The legend that parents used to frighten pups into obedience. He ruled the largest territory in North America from his obsidian palace in the mountains, and it was said he hadn't taken a mate in over 300 years. "Alpha starved," Kalen said, his silver eyes fixed on her belly with an intensity that made her shiver. "Your pups are feeding on your life force because they need an alpha bond to survive. Without it, they'll drain you completely within days." Anna's hand moved protectively over her stomach. "I can't, there's no bond." He rejected. "I know what he did." Kalen's voice turned cold, and the temperature in the diner seemed to drop. "Silas Vane is a fool who threw away something priceless. But that's not your concern anymore." He withdrew his hand, and Anna immediately felt the loss, a desperate emptiness that made her whimper. The triplets kicked frantically, searching for more of that life-sustaining energy. Kalen stood, towering over her, and extended his hand. "You have 2 choices. You can stay here and die in this pathetic diner, your pups dying with you. Or you can come with me." "Why would you help me?" Anna whispered, searching his face for deception. "Because I've been searching for you for 3 months, Kalen said, his expression unreadable. A rejected Luna carrying alpha triplets is not exactly subtle, even among humans. Your scent is broadcasting distress across 5 territories." Anna's breath caught. If Kalen had found her, others could too. Silas could find her. "What do you want in return?" She'd learned the hard way that nothing came without a price. Kalen's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "A bargain. I need a queen to appease my council. You need an alpha bond to keep your children alive. We help each other. A fake marriage, Anna said slowly, her mind racing despite her exhaustion. A mutually beneficial arrangement, Kaelin corrected. You get my protection, my name, and the alpha energy your pups need to survive. I get a Luna to stop my advisors from parading eligible females through my palace every week. He crouched down again, his silver eyes locking onto hers with devastating intensity. I'm offering you a chance to live, Anna Vance. More than that, I'm offering you power. The question is whether you're brave enough to take it. Anna's wolf stirred, pushing against the edges of her consciousness for the first time in weeks. Every logical part of her brain screamed that this was insane, that accepting help from the most dangerous alpha in existence was trading one nightmare for another. But the triplets kicked hard against her ribs, desperate and hungry, and she knew she was out of time. If I say yes, Anna said, her voice steadier than she felt, what exactly am I agreeing to? Kaelin stood, pulling her up with him effortlessly. Marge hovered nearby, her eyes wide with fear as she took in the Alpha King's presence. The other patrons had gone utterly silent, their wolves instinctively recognizing a predator far beyond their hierarchy. You will become my queen in name, Kaelin said, his tone formal now, as if reciting terms of a contract. You will live in my palace, attend court functions, and present yourself as my mate to the world. In return, I will provide you with everything you need, medical care, protection, resources. And I will share my alpha energy with your pups until they're strong enough to survive on their own. How long? Anna asked. Until they're born. Until they're weaned. Until they no longer need it, Kaelin said. Could be months. Could be years. Alpha triplets are unprecedented. We'll be navigating uncharted territory. Anna's hand trembled as she touched her belly. Years. She'd be bound to this man, this legend, for years. But what choice did she have? Death was the only alternative. And after? When they don't need you anymore. Then you're free to leave if you wish, Kaelin said, something flickering in his silver eyes that Anna couldn't read. The marriage can be dissolved quietly. You'll have enough resources to start over anywhere you choose, and your children will carry my protection for life. No one will dare touch them. It sounded too good to be true, which meant there had to be a catch. What aren't you telling me? Anna pressed, even as her vision swam again. Kaelin's expression darkened. Silas Vane will come for you. When he discovers you're alive and under my protection, his pride won't allow him to let it go. There will be conflict, possibly war. And you'll be at the center of it. He wants me dead, Anna said bitterly. He told me to get rid of them. He's a fool, Kaelin repeated, his voice dropping to a lethal purr. But he's a possessive fool. He threw you away, but he won't tolerate another alpha claiming what he rejected. Especially not me. The triplets moved inside her, 3 distinct patterns of kicks and rolls, and Anna made her decision. She'd survived 5 months of hell. She'd survived Silas's rejection, the freezing rain, the endless running, the slow death of her body giving everything to keep her babies alive. She could survive this too. I accept, Anna said, meeting Kaelin's silver gaze without flinching. I accept your deal. Something blazing and triumphant flashed across Kaelin's face. He took her hand, and she felt the crackle of power where their skin touched, a bond beginning to form. Then you're mine now, he said, and the possessiveness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. All 4 of you. I don't do anything halfway, Anna Vance. When I protect something, I protect it absolutely. He pulled her closer, his other hand resting on her belly where the triplets had gone still, as if listening. 4 treasures, he murmured, almost to himself. I was looking for a political solution, and fate handed me something far more valuable. A queen with the strength to survive what would have killed anyone else, and 3 pups who will be legends in their own right. His silver eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that stole her breath. Welcome to your new life, my queen. I promise you, no one will ever make you feel worthless again. The obsidian palace rose from the mountain like a crown of black diamonds, its spires cutting into the twilight sky. Anna pressed her face against the window of Kaelin's car, her breath fogging the glass as she took in the impossible architecture. It looked like something out of a dark fairy tale, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "It's not as cold as it looks," Kalen said from beside her, amusement threading through his voice. "The obsidian absorbs heat during the day. The interior is actually quite warm." Anna pulled back, suddenly self-conscious. She was still wearing her stained diner uniform, her hair a tangled mess. She looked like exactly what she was, a broken rogue wolf who had nothing. Kalen's hand covered hers, warm and steady. "Stop," he said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "You're not walking in there as a beggar. You're walking in as my queen." The car stopped at the entrance, where a line of servants waited in formal attire. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. This was real. This was actually happening. Kalen stepped out first, then extended his hand to her. When she took it, she felt that surge of alpha energy again, stabilizing her, giving her strength. He pulled her close, his arm sliding around her waist to support her weight. "Stay close to me," he murmured against her ear. "Let them see that you belong to me." The doors opened, and they walked into a grand hall that seemed to stretch on forever. Columns of black stone lined the space, and overhead, a chandelier of crystal and silver cast dancing lights across the polished floor. Wolves in expensive clothing stopped their conversations to stare, their eyes tracking Anna with undisguised curiosity and calculation. "Your Majesty," a tall woman in crimson approached, her expression carefully neutral. "We weren't expecting you to return with company." "This is Anna Vance," Kalen announced, his voice carrying through the hall with unmistakable authority. "My queen. You will address her as Your Majesty and show her the same respect you show me. Anyone who fails to do so will answer to me personally." The silence was deafening. Anna felt every eye on her, weighing her, judging her. Her worn uniform had never felt more obvious. Then Kalen did something unexpected. He turned to her, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so dangerous. "You're exhausted," he said, his voice dropping to something almost tender. "Forget the formal introductions. I'm taking you to your rooms." "But Your Majesty," the woman in crimson protested, "the council can wait," Kalen said coldly, not taking his eyes off Anna. "My queen needs rest, and my children need stability. Everything else is secondary." He swept Anna into his arms before she could protest, cradling her against his chest as if she weighed nothing. The triplets kicked approvingly, and Anna felt a rush of warmth that had nothing to do with alpha energy. As Kalen carried her through the palace, past the shocked faces and whispered speculation, Anna realized something that terrified her more than anything else. This arrangement was supposed to be fake, a transaction. But the way Kalen looked at her, the way he touched her, the fierce protectiveness in his voice when he called her his queen, none of it felt fake at all. 3 weeks had transformed Anna in ways she hadn't thought possible. The constant flow of Kalen's alpha energy had restored color to her cheeks, strength to her limbs, and fire to her wolf. She stood before the full-length mirror in her chambers, barely recognizing the woman staring back. The gown was midnight blue silk that cascaded over her rounded belly like water, diamonds glittering at her throat and wrists. Her dark hair had been swept up in an elegant style, and for the first time in months, she looked alive. "You're stunning," Kalen said from the doorway, and something in his voice made her pulse quicken. He crossed the room, his formal attire making him look every inch the legendary king he was. "Are you ready for this?" Anna took a breath. Tonight was the winter gala, where alphas from every major pack would gather to pay tribute to the king. Including Ironclaw. Including Silas. "I'm ready," she said, and meant it. Kalen's hand settled on her lower back as they descended the grand staircase into the ballroom. The crowd parted like water, wolves bowing and curtsying as they passed. Anna held her head high, her hand resting on her belly where the triplets stirred with energy. She was no longer the broken girl in a stained uniform. She was Queen Anna Drago, and she belonged here. The announcement came like a thunderclap. Alpha Silas Vane of Ironclaw, and Lady Celine Blackwood. Anna's spine stiffened, but Kalen's hand pressed reassuringly against her back. She turned slowly, deliberately, and watched as Silas and Celine entered the ballroom. Silas looked exactly as she remembered, broad-shouldered, handsome, arrogant. Celine clung to his arm in a gown of emerald green, a smug smile on her perfect face. Then Silas's eyes found her. Anna watched the color drain from his face, watched his steps falter as he took in the impossible sight before him. His rejected mate, the weak orphan he'd thrown away, standing beside the Alpha King wearing a crown of silver and diamonds. That's not possible, Silas breathed, loud enough for those nearby to hear. She was supposed to be dead. Kaelin's voice cut through the murmurs like a blade, cold and lethal. Is that what you were hoping for, Vane? That the mother of your children would die in the gutter where you left her? The ballroom went deadly silent. Silas's face flushed red, his hands clenching into fists. Those aren't my children. I told her to terminate them, Anna said, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. To get rid of the half-breed bastards that threatened your political alliance. I remember every word, Silas. Celine's eyes widened, her grip on Silas's arm tightening. Around them, the assembled alphas watched with undisguised shock and disapproval. Rejecting a fated mate was one thing. Ordering the death of unborn pups was something else entirely. You were carrying, Silas's voice cracked. Triplets, Kaelin said, his arm sliding possessively around Anna's waist. 3 alpha pups that you threw away like garbage. But your loss is my gain, Vane. I told you, I now have 4 treasures to protect. He pulled Anna closer, his silver eyes blazing with something savage and triumphant. And I take much better care of what's mine. The orchestra struck up a waltz, and Kaelin led Anna onto the dance floor. She could feel every eye on them, especially Silas's burning gaze from across the room. Kaelin's hand was firm at her waist, guiding her through the steps with an easy grace that made her feel weightless despite her rounded belly. He's watching you like a wolf watches prey he let escape, Kaelin murmured, spinning her gently. Let him watch, Anna said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. Let him see what he threw away. Kaelin's silver eyes gleamed with approval. That's my queen. The music swelled, and Anna allowed herself to get lost in the moment. For the first time since the rejection, she felt beautiful, wanted, protected. The triplets moved contentedly inside her, lulled by the rhythm and Kaelin's constant presence. When the waltz ended, Kaelin was pulled away by his counsel for urgent business. Anna found herself near the refreshment table, accepting a crystal glass of sparkling water from a server. She was raising it to her lips when she caught Celine's reflection in one of the mirrored columns, a satisfied smirk on her face. Anna's wolf snarled a warning, but it was too late. The liquid touched her tongue, and fire exploded through her veins. Wolf's bane. She dropped the glass, and it shattered against the marble floor. The sound seemed distant, muffled, as her legs gave out beneath her. She hit the steps leading up to the throne dais, her white gown. She changed for the dancing, spreading around her like a death shroud. Pain tore through her abdomen as the triplets thrashed in panic, feeling the poison flooding their mother's system. Anna. Kaelin's roar shook the chandeliers, but he was too far away, blocked by the crowd. Blood bloomed across her white gown, a crimson stain spreading from where her body was rejecting the poison, rejecting everything. She could feel herself dying, feel the triplets' frantic movements growing weaker. Through her dimming vision, she saw Silas pushing through the crowd, and the expression on his face wasn't horror. It was savage satisfaction. Finally, he said, loud enough for her to hear, his lips curling into a cruel smile. The worthless bitch gets what she deserves. Around him, other wolves murmured in shock at his callousness, but Silas didn't care. He raised his champagne glass in a mocking toast. To Anna Vance. May she rot in the hell she crawled out of. Celine appeared beside him, her face a mask of false concern, but her eyes glittered with triumph. The crowd gasped and stepped back as Anna convulsed on the steps, her hands clutching her belly, trying desperately to protect the babies even as her own life bled away. Kaelin, she whispered, but her voice was gone, lost in the roaring in her ears. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was Kaelin finally breaking through the crowd, his face transformed into something ancient and terrifying, his silver eyes blazing with a fury that promised death. Then there was nothing but cold and silence, and the fading heartbeats of her children slipping away. Anna woke to screaming. It took her a moment to realize the screams were her own. Pain radiated through every nerve, her body convulsing as the wolf's bane continued its deadly work. She was in Kaelin's private chambers, she realized dimly, surrounded by healers who worked frantically over her blood-soaked form. "The pups are failing," one healer said, her voice breaking. "Their heartbeats are dropping. Without the mother's life force, she's dying," another interrupted. "The poison is too advanced. Even with alpha energy, we can't get out." Kaelin's voice was barely human, a guttural snarl that sent the healers scrambling for the door. Anna tried to focus on his face, but her vision kept blurring. She could feel the triplets inside her, their movements growing weaker, more desperate. They were dying. Her babies were dying, and she was powerless to stop it. "Kaelin," she gasped, tasting blood. "Save them. Please. I don't care what it costs, just save them." He knelt beside the bed, his hand pressing against her belly where the triplets had gone almost still. His silver eyes met hers, and she saw something terrible in their depths, a decision that would cost him everything. "There's a way," he said quietly. "An old way. Forbidden for centuries because of what it demands. Tell me." Anna gripped his wrist with what little strength she had left. The sanguis vinculum. A blood adoption ritual that binds children to a new bloodline through shared life force. Kaelin's jaw clenched. "It would save them, rewrite their very essence to tie them to my alpha power instead of their failing connection to you. But Anna, the cost." "I don't care about the cost," she said fiercely. "They're innocent. They deserve to live." "The cost is mine to pay," Kaelin said, something raw and aching in his voice. "The ritual will put me in stasis for weeks, possibly months, while my body recovers from channeling that much power. It will leave me vulnerable, leave the kingdom vulnerable. And there's no guarantee I'll survive it." Anna's heart cracked. This man, this legendary king who owed her nothing, was willing to die for her children. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you risk everything?" Kaelin's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb brushing away the tears she didn't realize she'd shed. "Because they're yours," he said simply. "Because in 3 weeks, you've become more precious to me than 3 centuries of empty existence. Because the thought of losing any of you tears me apart in ways I didn't know I could still feel." He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to hers. "Because these aren't just your 4 treasures anymore, Anna. They're mine too." Before she could respond, Kaelin pulled back and began stripping off his shirt. Anna watched as he pulled an ancient blade from a locked chest, its edge gleaming with runes that seemed to writhe in the candlelight. "This is going to hurt," he warned, positioning the blade over his chest. "For both of us." He drove the blade into his own heart. Anna screamed as power exploded through the room, raw and primal and absolutely devastating. Kaelin's blood flowed freely, and he pressed his bleeding chest against her belly, his hands splaying across her skin. The ancient words he chanted were in a language older than civilization, each syllable resonating with power that made the walls shake. Anna felt the moment the ritual took hold. Agony tore through her as Kaelin's alpha essence poured into the triplets, overwhelming the poison, rewriting their very DNA. She could feel them changing, transforming, their weak heartbeats suddenly surging with impossible strength. Light blazed from beneath Kaelin's hands, violet and silver and blinding. The triplets moved with renewed vigor, feeding on the Alpha King's life force, binding themselves to him in ways that transcended blood and biology. When the light finally faded, Kaelin collapsed beside her, his face ashen, his breathing shallow. But Anna could feel it. The triplets were alive, thriving, their heartbeats strong and steady. And when she pressed her hand to her belly, she could sense something new in them, something ancient and powerful. They weren't just her children anymore. They were his too, in every way that mattered. Kaelin didn't wake up. 3 days passed, then 5, then a week. He lay in the massive bed like a carved statue, his chest barely rising with each shallow breath. The healers said his body was recovering from channeling power that should have killed him, that he needed time to regenerate. But time was a luxury they didn't have. Anna could feel the tension crackling through the palace like electricity. With the Alpha King incapacitated, the kingdom was vulnerable, and everyone knew it. She'd given birth 2 days after the ritual, her body recovering with supernatural speed thanks to the life force Kaelin had poured into her. The triplets were perfect, healthy, and absolutely extraordinary. 2 boys and a girl, each with eyes that shifted between silver and violet, a mark of Kaelin's blood adoption. They were his now, in every way that mattered. Anna had named them Kieran, Cashin, and Lyra, and they already showed signs of the legendary power flowing through their veins. She was nursing Lyra in the royal chambers when the alarms began to wail. Anna's wolf surged to alertness as armed guards burst through the doors. "Your Majesty, we're under attack," the captain said, his face grim. "Ironclaw forces have breached the outer walls. Alpha Vane is leading them personally." Anna's blood ran cold. Silas. Of course it was Silas. He'd waited until Kaelin was at his weakest, and now he was coming to finish what the poison had started. "Evacuate the king to the safe room," Anna commanded, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "And bring me a weapon." The captain's eyes widened. "Your Majesty, you just gave birth. You can't." "I am the only alpha conscious in this palace," Anna said, carefully placing Lyra in her cradle beside her sleeping brothers. "And I will not let that bastard anywhere near my children or my king. Now bring me a weapon, or I'll find one myself." 5 minutes later, Anna stood at the entrance to the king's chambers, a loaded gun in her hands and steel in her spine. She'd sent the triplets to the deepest vault with the most trusted guards, but she wouldn't run. Not this time. She heard them coming, the thundering footsteps, the clash of steel, her guards falling one by one. Then Silas appeared at the end of the corridor, his clothes splattered with blood, Celine and a dozen Ironclaw warriors at his back. "Hello, Anna," Silas said, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "I have to say, you're remarkably resilient for someone who should be dead." "You're not welcome here," Anna said, raising the gun with steady hands. "Leave now, or I'll kill you where you stand." Silas laughed, the sound echoing off the stone walls. "With a human weapon? How pathetic. You're still the same weak little orphan, playing dress-up in a dead king's palace." "Kaelin isn't dead." "Not yet," Celine purred, stepping forward. "But he will be. And once he's gone, this kingdom falls to whoever's strong enough to take it. We're claiming what should have been ours from the beginning." Anna's finger tightened on the trigger. "You want this kingdom? You'll have to go through me first." Silas's smile turned cruel. "With pleasure." He shifted, his body exploding into his massive wolf form, and charged. Anna fired. The bullet caught him in the shoulder, and Silas howled in pain and fury, stumbling but not stopping. His warriors surged forward, and Anna knew with crystal clarity that she was going to die here. But she would die protecting what was hers, her children, her king, her kingdom. She would die a queen, not a victim. Anna fired again, and again, each shot buying precious seconds. Behind her, through the doors, Kaelin lay vulnerable and unconscious. In the vault below, 3 tiny lives depended on her holding this line. So Anna Vance, the rejected orphan who'd been left to die in the rain, planted her feet and refused to break. "Come on then," she snarled at the advancing wolves, her own beast rising to meet them. "Let's finish this." Anna's gun clicked empty. She'd taken down 4 of Silas's warriors, wounded 3 more, but it wasn't enough. Silas circled her in his wolf form, blood matting his fur from the shoulder wound, his eyes burning with hatred and humiliation. Celine stood back, watching with cruel anticipation as the remaining warriors closed in. "This is how it ends," Silas growled, his voice distorted by his wolf form. "The worthless orphan dies defending a king who can't even wake up to save her." He lunged, jaws wide, going straight for her throat. Anna braced herself for the killing blow, her only regret that she wouldn't see her children grow up. Then the world exploded with power. The doors behind Anna blew off their hinges, and something massive and terrible emerged from the king's chambers. It wasn't Kaelin's normal wolf form. This was something ancient, something that should have been extinct. A lichen, a creature of legend that stood nearly 9 feet tall, walking on 2 legs with the head and claws of a wolf but the size and strength of something far more monstrous. Kaelin's silver eyes blazed with violet fire as he stepped over Anna's crouched form, placing himself between her and Silas. The temperature in the corridor dropped until their breath misted in the air. "You made a mistake coming here," Kaelin's voice resonated from the lichen's throat, deeper and more terrifying than anything human. You poisoned my queen. You threatened my children. And you thought I would sleep through your pathetic attempt at conquest. Silas tried to run. He didn't make it 3 steps. Kaelin moved with impossible speed, his massive clawed hand closing around Silas's wolf form and lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. The Iron Claw warriors scattered, their nerve breaking in the face of the legendary creature before them. Celine's scream echoed through the halls as she fled. "Please," Silas whimpered, shifting back to human form in Kaelin's grip. "Please, I didn't, you were just trying to murder my family," Kaelin said coldly. "You rejected your fated mate while she carried your children. You ordered her to terminate them. You poisoned her at my own gala and celebrated as she bled out on my floor. You attacked my kingdom while I was vulnerable." He tightened his grip, and Silas screamed. "There is no mercy for someone like you." Anna watched as Kaelin carried Silas to the nearest window, the one that overlooked the 1,000-foot drop to the jagged rocks below. "Wait," Anna said softly, and Kaelin paused, his violet-silver eyes finding hers. "Make it quick. He doesn't deserve to suffer. He deserves to be forgotten." Something like pride flashed across Kaelin's monstrous features. He turned back to Silas, who was sobbing now, begging incoherently. "You heard your queen," Kaelin said, and dropped him. Silas's scream faded into the night, ending abruptly when he hit the rocks. The silence that followed was deafening. Kaelin shifted back slowly, his body reducing to his human form, though his eyes still glowed with residual power. He swayed slightly, and Anna rushed to support him. "The babies," he gasped. "Are they safe?" Anna assured him, tears streaming down her face. "They're safe. You saved us. Again." 2 weeks later, Anna stood in the grand hall wearing a gown of silver and violet, the colors of the royal house. The assembled alphas from every major pack watched as Kaelin placed a crown of black diamonds on her head. Not the consort's crown, but the sovereign's crown, identical to his own. "I present to you Queen Anna Drago," Kaelin announced, his voice carrying through the hall with absolute authority. "Not just my mate, but my equal in all things. She defended this kingdom when I could not. She held the line against an invading army. She is a warrior, a mother, and the strongest wolf I have ever known." He turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "The contract is void, Anna. I'm not asking you to stay out of obligation. I'm asking you to stay because I love you. Because those 3 miracles sleeping in the nursery deserve both their parents. Because you've become the other half of my soul." Anna looked into his silver eyes and saw her future reflected there. A future built not on rejection and pain, but on love and strength and the family they'd forged from ashes. "I stay," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "Not because of a contract or a crown. But because you're mine, Kaelin Drago. All 4 of you are mine." The hall erupted in applause as Kaelin pulled her close and kissed her, sealing a bond that had started as survival and transformed into something legendary. Anna Vance, the rejected orphan, had become Queen of Wolves. And she would never be worthless again. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful Omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought of this story and what kind of werewolf stories you'd like to see next. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next.